Hello humans and other species, I'm Batsy, and holy moly, what is this new sound quality? This little bat got a new microphone, new audio interface, a whole expander, compressor, EQ, everything this bat could need, but set up by an actual professional. So welcome to the name pending base. Yeah, we really need some name suggestions, maybe something medieval about vampires or something. Anyway, this is a collaborative series where I build your suggestions and ideas with the goal of working together to achieve the coolest base ever. In previous episodes, we built a mod processing plant that is still missing some electricity. We also made a mighty power plant that gets its fuel from local mines and farms. And more recently, we made some paths along the ways to be able to teleport between locations. For today's episode, and with a single boat difference, we are going to make a fishing farm. And I'm so ready for it. I have some great ideas. But before we get into that, remember to leave a comment with your project ideas. Anything that you may consider cool and necessary to have in the base. Or maybe something silly and funny for the sake of it. Almost anything is allowed. And while you're there, remember to leave a name suggestion for the dam. So, the fishing farms, they are not too complicated to set up, they are quite easy to understand. They just require a little bit of setup. So let's move to the creative fall and let's check that out. This is the simplest version that we are going to look today, but all of them rely on the deployer forecasting the fishing route. The idea is that we want the deployer to be able to cast the fishing rod, then wait for the fish to come, and only then to drill the fishing rod. So to achieve that, we are using a pressure plate. Pressure plate is going to detect the boba, and while the boba is on the pressure plate, it's going to activate this repeater, and that's going to lock the deployer. This is a mechanic from Create. If you throw a redstone signal into the deployer, it's going to stop. And what happens now is that when the boba goes down a bit because it catches a fish, it's not going to be detected by the pressure plate anymore, and that's going to release the repeater, and that's going to allow the deployer to get the fish, basically. The funny thing is that it just happened and for some reason it didn't work, so that's good. Let's wait for the next one, see if we actually broke something. Okay, there we go, it still works. Maybe I was too close and I was activating the pressure plate. Anyway, few things to keep in mind. This block has to be a slab, a stair, something like this. Basically anything that doesn't connect to the fence. So not stairs, but you get what I mean. Slabs, it can be trapdoors, it can be basically anything that is not connecting to the fence. These side blocks, that doesn't matter. This block here doesn't matter either. It's this one that is relevant. The reason for that is that if this fence is connected to the block, the boba won't be able to go down enough. And if that's the case, we won't be able to release the fishing rod, because it's always going to be activated, so it's never going to work. What else? We are using hopper. This is to get all of the fishes. It doesn't require any more setup than this, to be honest. And another important thing is that this needs to run at 80 to 100 or something. You can risk it and go 120 and stuff like that, but the higher you go, the more that it starts to mess up. So if we basically max it out, what you're going to see is that this isn't reliable, because the pressure plate detected the boba for a second, but it wasn't quick enough to block the deployer with the boba in place. So this is why it's messing up. To avoid that, just run the farm at 110 or whatever. Don't run it a lot, but don't max it at either. The only caveat with this farm is that it's not going to get any treasures, and I kinda like treasures, so let's check another design that will allow those. This one is more complicated, but only in the way that it detects the bubble. The rest is fairly about the same, I guess. The only thing that is changing is that we are using a calibrated 𝐋𝐢𝐧𝐤𝐬 sensor with an input of 2. We achieve this with an analog lever. Place it on the backside and set it to an input of 2. This is going to trigger the splash sounds, so the bubble does splash sounds. So a few things to keep in mind. The splash sounds are anything. When the deployer casts the fishing rod initially, it's going to also trigger the 𝐋𝐢𝐧𝐤𝐬 sensor. So to avoid that, we have a sticky piston here with a piece of wool. The idea is for this to go in the way and to avoid every time the deployer casts the fishing rod. So whenever this triggers, this goes on the way and is going to, block the sounds. As for actually reeling the fishing rod, we have another setup here. So first we have a pulse repeater. This is going to make sure it's always the same signal length. The issue with the Skulk sensor is that it doesn't always emit the same length of the signal. I'm not sure if I'm saying that correctly. And sometimes that can be unreliable because we need to open this clutch for the exact amount of time, always the exact amount of time. So this is going to make sure it's always a quick pulse. So after that, what we are going to do is extend the signal for 16 ticks. This is going to be enough for the deployer to reel the fishing rod and cast it again. The reason I have 2 extenders instead of 1 is that in this spot there is the analog lever and it will risk leaking the redstone signal through the wool. So I had to place this extender here, and I guess I could just use a redstone piece or something, that will be fine. But the idea originally was to have a button somewhere, and you need the button to be between those two. We'll see that later on, probably. The only issue I have right now is, like I said, I don't have a button to start this, so we will have to flicker this a second. Oh, okay, now it's going to work. Let's go. Sometimes the initial testing, it still triggers. The issue is that because we flickered this extender, we didn't trigger this section, so we never blocked the splash sound. Basically, that was what happens if we didn't have this wall on the middle. Oh, here it comes. There we go. So basically, this is what's going to happen every time it detects the pop-up. Now, you might be wondering why we have an engage fan here. This is to avoid the splash sounds again. Because the issue is that when the deployer casts the fishing rod doesn't stay in place. It keeps going up and down all the time, and it keeps causing splash sounds. So that keeps triggering the Skulk sensor even if there is no fish inside. So that's why we have a really slow engage fan. This is basically running at 8, so it's quite slow. It's just enough to keep the boba on the most top layer of the water. And that's basically it. It's a bit more setup for sure, but it's not that much complicated. And the only issue is that setting this up is quite a bit tricky. Quite a bit tricky. Before we continue with that amazing project, I'm actually quite sick of seeing this bridge. Like, sure, the teleports are working perfectly, I cannot complain about that. But this is such an eyesore, it's getting me really annoyed. I'm probably not annoyed, it just bothers me to see it. So let's take care of this. Look at this, so much better without that massive bridge. But for the moment of truth, is it actually going to work? Is it not going to break all of the charting that we did? Oh, yes. Yes. Now it looks so much better. No massive bridge in the water, no weird red lines in the water. Now it's working properly. Now, yes, this is properly working. Look at that thing. That's so funny. That's Batman's face, by the way. Quite silly. I bet we can see that from quite far away, actually. I guess so long as the render distance allows it, though. But you might notice I'm not using distant horizons anymore. The reason for that is that even though I have it set up at quite low settings, I had it at only 80 render distance and at balance and performance settings and all of that. But it was crashing my replay mode so often, and also I was having memory issues. There was probably a way to make it work properly, I don't know. So yeah, I have to remove distant horizons. It was bugging me quite a bit. But anyway, let's go back to fishing. So here we have the fishing boat / fishing farm / something. And I know some of you might have noticed the boat was there in the previous recording. The truth is that I already recorded most of this video, But midway through editing the video, the audio professional that I mentioned before replied to my messages, and we set up the entire audio interface and all of that, and the audio, it was so good. I didn't want it to have half the video with one microphone and the other half with another microphone that sounds completely different. So I thought I'm going to record most of the previous clips, which I guess I could have done a voiceover, but anyway, I preferred to re-record them, and let's just do the rest of the video with the new microphone, which is great, which is amazing. I'm really happy with the results. I hope you like this new sound quality as much as I do. But as for the fishing farm boat thingy goes, don't pay attention to these chains and stuff. I'm going to show you later why those are here. This is going to be for decorations. But yeah, let's check this for example. This is something that my boyfriend and I worked for quite a bit. We spent like half an hour figuring out what could be used as a steering wheel for the boat. I'm not sure if it's called a steering wheel, I have no idea about boats. But basically we ended up using the flywheel from 𝐋𝐢𝐬, but usually the flywheel is much larger. So what we did was use one of those, if I can click on it. Oh, there we go. We use one of those armor stands. We set it to invisible here, and we set it to small. This way, the flywheel is obviously smaller, and it's also invisible, so you don't actually see the armor stand. And honestly, it looks so amazing. I really love it. I really love how it looks. Other than that, the overall shape, I think it's quite good. I was using a few pictures from Google to reference as a guidance, but at the end I just did whatever I wanted, to be honest. I started placing blocks, and when the shape started to make sense, I just continued as I wanted. Some of the things worth mentioning, I used the bites, the copycat bites. I think they are quite amazing. I just had to enjoy those, but the issue that they had before is that if you place few of them and you wanted to remove just one of them, you will remove all of them, like you will remove the entire block. But now with the wrench, you can just remove a single one of those bites, which I think it's amazing. I think it's the best change ever. And of course, you can still remove the texture, which is quite nice. I think it makes working with them so much better. And honestly, I think the sale, it looks quite good. I'm not that good at organics and stuff like that. And I guess it does not organic. Anyway, like making things look natural and all of that, I'm not that good. But with a bit of patience, I think it ended up looking quite nice. The rest is probably not that realistic, like this here that I don't know the name of. But still, no, that's Spanish. Yeah, I have no idea. Few of those things are probably not realistic, but I quite like how it looks overall. I think it looks quite nice. One of the biggest surprises was these pressure plates. These jungle pressure plates. This resource pack called 𝐋𝐢𝐬. These jungle pressure plates are like this, and honestly they look amazing. This was the best thing that could happen, because I think any other pressure plate, it will have looked a bit out of place. I think it looks quite nice. Like obviously it doesn't make sense to have a hole on the ship. That doesn't make sense. But overall, it kind of looks like it fits somewhat. I don't know. I'm happy. I'm quite happy with that one. The last piece of decorations are those chains that I mentioned before. This is because I want to use these mechanical bearings for decorations. So one thing that you can do, for example, this railing. This is all glued, obviously. So we can go here. We can go into this mechanical bearing, and we have to set it to only place when anchor is destroyed. Then we have to 45 degrees, move it to the place that we want, and boom, we have a railing for the boat. I think it looks really amazing. Like, yes, it's a diagonal, but because it's still blocky, in my head it still fits Minecraft. But yeah, this is something I really love it. And those, I just want to add them like they are ropes or something like that. So let me show you. There we go. So this is the idea I had in mind. Just kinda like the ropes that you usually see on ships. I made sure these are chains. These aren't ropes, but I think it looks quite cool. And these are going to do the same, but connect them, make around here or something. I think this is going to make it look quite nice. And like I said, yes, there's a diagonal, but it kind of fits. At least to me, it kind of fits. As for the fishing farms go, They are basically the same thing that we did before. Oh, this one is running already. That's funny. Anyway, it's basically the same. I just had to do some compromises to make it fit inside the boat. Because my mistake was that I made the boat and then I had to fit the fishing farm inside. Even though that design is not that complicated, I had to do a whole mess with the redstone. Just to add the button that I mentioned before, and to through the redstone and all of that, I had to do a massive mess. Kind of button, let me actually explain why it's relevant. So, in order to activate the farm, we need to cast the fishing rod. But, in order to have the farm working, we need to reel the fishing rod and then cast it again. So those are two different time windows. So to achieve that, we have a button. We send it through a pulse, so it's a shorter pulse. Like this stun button is 10 ticks. This is going to be only 2 ticks. This is relevant. So after the pulse, we have an extender for 8 ticks. This is enough for this deployer at maximum speed to cast the fishing rod, but nothing else. When the skulk sensor triggers the system, instead of having an extension of 8 ticks, it's going to have this extension of 9 ticks and this one of 8 ticks. So in total we're going to delay it for 17 ticks. Don't ask me why this one is 17 ticks and the other one is 16. Your guess is as good as mine, but this is how it worked. So these 17 ticks are enough to reel the fishing rod and cast it again, while those only 8 ticks from the bottom are enough to only cast it. That's why we have different ones. And of course we have the extender for the wool on both of them. So this time the button also triggers this extension and this 𝐋𝐢𝐧𝐤𝐬 obviously triggers it. If you don't have it, it's not the end of the wall. If you don't have it on the button, I mean. Because the first time you cast the fishing rod, it's going to trigger the system. And that's going to free the fishing rod and cast it again. But because the skulk sensor does trigger the wool, the second time it triggers, it's not going to trigger anymore. If you cannot afford to connect the button to the extender, it's probably fine. You just need it for the skulk sensor. And I guess this section is pretty much what it was before. I just changed this one for a copycat step. I was testing and it was enough. I didn't need that full block. And I honestly think it looks better. So I was like, okay, that's good enough. It doesn't require any more setup. The hoppers like before and we have a bend. Both phantoms end up here. I don't like it. I prefer not to use sophisticated storage because if I want to do a schematic out of this kind of forces people to play with mods and maybe their mod pack don't have them. So I don't love this solution. But the problem is that I don't have that much space in the boat to do a whole storage system solution. So I'm not quite sure what I'm going to do about that one. But yeah, if I can figure it out without sophisticated storage, I'm probably going to change this in the future. For now, I guess this will have to be it because it's obviously working. We have a fishing rod here. And I'm not sure if those count as treasures as well. But I'm sure they aren't. I will have to check those loot tables. But it's obviously working, so let's move it into the survival wall. I'm going to add more details. I just don't want to play in creative forever. I prefer to move this into the survival wall and finish the design and all of that later. But yeah, let's move it there. Let's export this schematic and let's continue the pressure from there, I guess. So editor 𝐋𝐢𝐧𝐤𝐬. Hit it with some movie magic. And sure enough, here we have the end result. I know I said I was going to add more details and I ended up not adding them. The truth is that because I had to re-record most of this footage, it delayed the video quite a bit. And I still have to edit a video for Ubersuite this week, so I don't have a lot of time. So anyway, I'll probably finish it between videos. I'm probably going to add a few details. Mostly because I realized when I imported this schematic that from this angle it looks quite simple. It looks quite ugly. The thing is, I was so focused on making it look good from this angle because I was so focused on the thumbnail of the video. I completely forgot to actually do something about the site that I'm going to see every single day. But that should be fine. We can add some details later on. The important thing is that it is working. It is working properly. I have placed all of the shades and everything. I have already set up the mechanical bearings, and I think they look quite nice. I'm considering changing them for actual ropes, because later on I realized we actually have ropes. We have ropes from Farmer's Delight on... where was it? So we have ropes from supplementaries from Farm and Charm, and we should have some from Farmer's Delight. And apparently from Meadout as well. Yeah, from Farmer's Delight, there we go. So I'll realize that later, and I think I might change them at some point to ropes. I think they should look better. Not sure, let me know if you think we should change them to ropes or chains are fine. And that's about all of the changes. I haven't changed anything else. I guess one thing that I forgot to mention, two things I guess. I need to change the redstone because jumping, or more like landing on something, triggering this 𝐋𝐢𝐧𝐤𝐬, and this is bad. For obvious reasons, this is bad. So I have to figure out how to add wool here, so it doesn't trigger every time someone is in the boat. And to achieve that, I'm going to have to lower this redstone, tweak this ports to be somewhere else. I'll have to tweak it a little bit, but I think it should be possible. Either way, I'll do that another time. But one thing that I forgot to mention is that this farm is actually split, because I didn't want it to add too much power generation. We are working with just a few small water wheels here. And sure, there is 8 of them, but all of them go a long way. So what I did was adding some clutches. We have this clutch where we can block that farm. And let's say we want food, so we can enable this farm. It's not too annoying. I like having clutches on my farms anyway, so this is a good way of not having to add massive water wheels underneath, because there is not much room in this little ship. But this will have to be it for this episode. I'm a bit sad that I had to cut it short, but I'm actually happy with the progress. I think the boat ended up being amazing. It looks so cool. I was happy to work on a fishing farm again, because treasure farms are not always that common. In fact, I rarely see them, so hopefully you all learned something new. And hopefully you all like this new sound quality. I paid quite a bit to hire a freelance to help me with the audio, and I honestly think every penny was well spent, was really well spent. I wouldn't have been able to do this myself, to be honest. But thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to leave a comment with project ideas to vote in what project you want me to do next in the next episode. I'm going to leave the current project list in the screen and in the comments or stuff like that, so make sure to vote in which one you want me to work. As well as please give me some name suggestions for this town. But I love you all so much. Thank you for watching. Thank you for being here with me. And I'll see you all on the next one. Bye bye!